Hello, ladies and gentlemen, college football fans especially. This is Tim May, the Tim May podcast, aptly named. Once again, a new edition. And wow, I'm really excited about today's edition because in succession, I will have on noted author, as I called him, muckraker, pot stirrer, Paul Finebaum. Uh, he will be on with me in the first edition. We're going to talk about what Ohio State football looks like from instead of 30,000 feet from 500 miles away, maybe to the rest of the nation here as the Ryan Day era cranks up. And he has a few interesting things to say about that in the transition from the Urban Meyer to the Ryan Day era. And then I have another really special guest, Nina Day, the wife of new head coach Ryan Day. And we talk about a lot of things, including the foundation she and Ryan are involved in to bring mental awareness more to the fore when it comes to youth and adolescence. But then on top of that, hey, maybe what could be a couple of the big differences between the Urban Meyer era and the Ryan Day era, both on and off the field. So I'm really looking forward to talking with both of these folks. But before that, just wanted to throw a little thing in there. You know, we were the scrimmage of this past weekend was the first real what you'd call football that Ohio State had practiced in this preseason. And the thing that came out of it more than anything else was that Ryan Day has not settled on a starting quarterback yet. And as I tweeted out later Saturday night, the way I understood it, Gunnar Hoke, the transfer in from Kentucky, actually had a pretty good scrimmage the other day. Now, he was working with the second team offense, while Justin Fields, the highly celebrated transfer from Georgia, was working with the first team. But the way I understood it, Gunnar Hoke probably was a little more productive, et cetera, a little more consistent in that scrimmage. So when Ryan Day says he hasn't settled on his quarterback, I think he's being honest with us, being honest with you. So that's as big a question mark to look at headed deeper into camp as there is going out there. But you know what? Without further ado, let's get into my interview here with Paul Finebaum. And here we are. We're back with Paul Finebaum, a man who really needs no introduction, a best-selling author, New York Times author, a muckraker in some points when it comes to college football. He likes to stir the pot, etc., but he's made a great living doing it. Paul, welcome to my podcast.
Well, Tim, I'm first of all, I'm just glad to know you're still alive. I saw when you were leaving the newspaper business and checked the obit page. So the fact that you're doing a podcast gives me hope for this country.
Well, you know what? You left the newspaper business a long time ago too, you know, and you emerged and have done quite well with yourself, right?
I ran from the newspaper business. But you know, all kidding aside, guys like us, we were in it when it was really good. And
yeah,
I have great memories of it.
Yeah, unlimited budgets. I mean, those were the days, brother. Now instead of people running from the newspapers, it seems like the newspapers are running from them, you know, but that's another story. Hey, real quick, Paul, the reason I definitely wanted to have you on here in the preseason is, you know, you got a glimpse of what Ryan Day could do as a head coach a year ago. I know you were paying attention because you pay attention to the national scene as well as the Southeast, but what was your impression of what he did stepping in for Urban Meyer for like 7 weeks last year, including the first 3 games of the season, and sort of carry that over into what you expect from him in Ohio State football here in the post-Urban Meyer era?
Tim, I thought he did a spectacular job, considering the heat that was on that program at the time from literally every quadrant of the country. He handled it. I don't remember much of what he said, and that's good because he didn't really say all that much other than the prescribed normal conversation that an interim coach would have, and since then I like what I see. I mean, we don't know that much. I mean, there's no way you could, but
right.
People in the industry with whom I know and respect have great admiration for him. So I think it's a good move for Ohio State. And, forget the Urban conversation. Urban's one of the best coaches in modern college football history. But it does feel like a cloud has lifted and this program has hit the reset button.
Yeah, and that's coming from you from down there. I mean, like I said, you pay attention. You've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. To me, I liken this to if somebody offers you the job of being the CEO of a super major successful company and you have very little experience being a CEO, do you turn it down to go take a lesser job to learn? I mean, this was sort of Ryan Day's situation, and I mean, you agree, right? I mean, he had to jump on this job no matter what his background was.
Well, absolutely, and I think he showed during that interim that he was prepared for it. And by the way, everyone's not.
Right.
I've watched a lot of first-year coaches, as you have, Tim, and
Yeah.
and many will tell me later they simply didn't know what they were doing. They felt obligated to say yes to every person they called, every group that needed a speaker. And to me, Ryan Day got he got a baptism under fire, and he succeeded. And you look at recruiting; it's going extraordinarily well. And a couple of weeks from now, we'll find out how he handles the job as a full-time coach. But the fact that there's not a lot of conversation about him nationally, or nor is there a debate, is indicative that people have already factored in. He's no longer an interim. I mean, he's the head coach at Ohio State, and it looks normal versus how in the world do they hire that guy?
Exactly. It's like when you're an offensive coordinator, it's like you're flying a jet fighter plane. You're kind of pretty much fixed on what you're doing. When you become the head coach, it's like you're flying a huge cargo plane with a lot of people in the back, and there's a lot more steering involved, a lot more dead reckoning, et cetera. And that as he said, that is his challenge, is every day learning something a little bit new about just dealing with the monster that is Ohio State football and what it means in this state. It reminded me, as you well know, Paul, you and I've talked few times. I've been on your show a few times, and I grew up an Alabama fan way back when, and I just remember the transition from Bear Bryant to Ray Perkins. It was pretty good, but then it got rough, and one of the things Ray Perkins inherited was a deep well of talent, and that's what it looks like Ryan Day has inherited. But now it's, what do you do with it, right?
Well, there's no question. I covered that as a young reporter, and coaches just sometimes don't know what they're getting into. What's really interesting, you mentioned Alabama. I was at a seminar not long ago, and they were talking about surveys and data, and it said, at least on the screen, the two most popular programs in the country are Alabama and Ohio State. And because of that, there is attention paid, and I think the programs are very similar. Yes, there are professional sports in Ohio, even in Columbus, but nothing can rival the Ohio State University when it comes to football, and that's a tough job to find yourself in. But again, without having seen much other than the 3 games, I thought he checked all the boxes. And I think that's good, because Ohio State has had some very difficult transitions. Certainly the Tressel, Fickle, and then Urban came in. I mean, this is a really good spot for Ohio State. And what I really like too, Tim, is that the expectations, while always high, aren't at the zenith. That a lot of people do think Michigan's going to win the Big Ten this year. Not that it matters, but it's not an impossible situation that he finds himself in, where others have been there expecting to win a national championship the first year.
Yeah. But as you well know, you know Alabama football like I do, and Ohio State football, the expectations maybe from the outside aren't the same. but
well, no, of course,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
don't come back in 3 years and say, hey, we did go to the bowl game in Orlando. That's
the Outback Bowl, or something. I mean, exactly. But that's a great way to put it. I just remember that, and the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, the expectations of a program. I mean, like I said, I was born and raised in Alabama till we moved to Texas when I was 11. I went to Alabama home games in the early 60s with my dad and my older brother Ben. And, from everybody thinks it's been a seamless transition from Bear Bryant to Nick Saban. And we all, this. There was the Gene Stallings bump, I called it. But just because it's a big-time program and it has the tradition and everything going for it, the man running the show does make a huge difference. You agree?
Absolutely. I spent most of my career in Alabama. I mean, I covered coaches like Bill Curry and Mike Shula and Mike Dubose.
The revolving door.
Yeah, and I covered one coach, Mike Price, who never coached a game. He got fired. He got fired after the spring game.
Let me say something real quick. It's rolling, baby. Go ahead now.
exactly. So the head coach is critically important, and it's not for everyone, but I think this. I don't know, Ryan Day. Listen, I don't want to act like I do,
Yeah,
but I, I I don't think that's going to be a problem. I mean, I think the issue he'll have is winning enough games. That's always what you
correct.
have to do at Ohio State. You can't say, well, we had a good season, we went 9-4. That won't work.
Yeah, exactly. I know I keep getting back to that. It's like we're trying to talk about the future and it hadn't happened yet, and I always hate that because it's like trying to fix the past. The past is done, etc. And I wanted to quickly get you on this, Paul, before I let you go. What's just sort of your take on the national scene right now? I mean, you kind of eyeball things, like I said, from 500 miles away in a lot of respects. What's just your take on who the legitimate top five ought to be, for example, or top three, top five going into this season? What's your take on that?
Tim, you've got this new dynamic working where the two schools are interchangeable, and I'm speaking of Alabama and Clemson. I don't
Yes.
think there's any doubt right now that they begin the season uh, ahead of everyone else. And then you have Georgia, I think, very firmly in that number 3 spot.
Yes.
And then I think you do have Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma, maybe someone from out west sitting around Notre Dame trying to determine what the next level is. Now that next level is still college football playoff quality. Don't misunderstand me, but I don't think anyone is quite where Bama and Clemson is right now. Though
Yeah.
they have recruited at a level, and I know Ohio State's recruiting well, but over the last 3 or 4 years, that no one else can really contend with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, Ohio State has recruited pretty close to that level too. But like you're saying, and I mean, the proof's in the pudding. What we saw the last couple of years, and Paul, how much is Alabama smarting from that butt kicking it took in the national championship? What do you sense from that? What's the carryover, or maybe what's the hangover from that?
This has been the longest off season that I can ever remember, and because it was shocking on the night of January 7th, and even now in mid-August, it's still shocking because nothing like that had ever happened. And you guys understand that.
Yeah.
You dealt with Clemson a couple of years ago, and that was a shock to the system. But this was just on the biggest stage and the greatest coach, and I mean it's really remarkable trying to comprehend it. And you've heard of coaches throwing his players under the bus. Nick Saban threw his coaches under the bus,
Yeah.
which is really smart, by the way,
Yeah.
because the ones he threw under the bus are gone. And I just don't think he can come up with another explanation of what happened that night.
Well, what's interesting, we were at the Big Ten meetings several weeks ago, and in too bad for us or me is his comments about the coaches came the day after we got to talk to Mike Loxley. But the interesting thing about talking to Mike Loxley was some Michigan reporters were asking him specifically about Josh Gaddis. And he made it clear. He goes, "I was the offensive coordinator. Josh was the co-offensive coordinator," meaning, wow, just delineating it that way. And then you hear Saban's comments, and you're kind of going, okay, I kind of understand what Saint Nick is talking about here. I mean, do you think he's gotten that straightened out? Obviously, you'll never know until December or January.
Yeah, what he did. The reason why I think he did something unusual after Gaddis left, and after not only did Loxley leave, Dan Enos left, who's the quarterback coach.
Right.
He went to Miami.
Right.
Saban brought in Steve Sarkisian, who, listen, got a good reputation on the field, and
Yeah.
but Sark had already left Alabama. He had the job 2 years ago, and he bailed out to go to the Falcons. So that meant Saban said, "I need somebody. I need an adult. I need someone I can trust." But listen, there's still no guarantees. And if Nick Saban loses to Clemson again this year, whenever we talk in the offseason, the questions are going to be pretty obvious about Nick Saban's legacy and how much damage it has suffered.
Yeah, and real quickly, I know you know this. You've been around almost as long as I have. I'm still your senior, but the worm always turns, man. No matter how long it goes. I mean, Bear Bryant didn't win bowl games for 8 straight years. Remember that?
I do.
And things like that. And he was like, oh man, he can't coach anymore. Then he wins 3 national championships after that. But hey, one other thing I want to hit and before I let you go, and right in the middle of you can see it. The examples: Alabama, losing Jalen Hurts to Oklahoma, Georgia losing Justin Fields to Ohio State. This quarterback transfer portal. What's your take on that? And it's in my opinion, it's really interesting because Ohio State has been affected by it probably more than anybody because they lost 3 guys that were in their quarterback room from a year ago or different places. Now one's in the NFL and 2 are at different schools, and then they bring in 2 guys, and one from Kentucky and of course Justin Fields from Georgia. But I mean, do you think this is the future of college football? Is free agency?
I do think so, and on one level, I like it. It's about time the players had a little power.
Yeah.
And people don't like when guys like us say, well, coaches can leave it with no cost. Why can't players? And too bad. I mean, these coaches are making $5 to $10 million a year, and welcome to the real world.
Hey, let me interrupt you with something, though. And the coaches have contracts and the players don't, I mean,
exactly.
That's what's weird about that, but go ahead now. Yeah.
No, I mean, I realize it creates havoc, but it also gives college football a level of unpredictability which we have never seen before, and you can change your program around pretty quickly with the right quarterback. And I mean, just like what you have up there in Justin Fields, I thought for a long time he should have been the starter last year at Georgia, but it just never quite worked for him. I think he's a fabulous quarterback. Alabama lost Jalen Hurts as a graduate transfer. Kelly Bryant, Martell. It goes right down the block.
Right.
But to me, it's good. Why not shake up college football a little bit?
I agree. How do you think Hurts will do at Oklahoma? Just what did you sense that there is a championship quarterback also that needs to play somewhere? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, he's a really good quarterback, and he's got so much experience now. And I don't think it's automatic out there because but I would be really surprised if they don't win the Big 12. And he has a big year. He just got surpassed by a generational quarterback in Tagovailoa. Those things happen.
Right. Hey, one last thing. What's your? My calling card is one last question. Sorry about that. But what is your sense of when you were talking about the top 5 a while ago when I was talking to you, and one of those teams that maybe a lot of people are throwing in the mix now? I'm not sure if they're quite there yet, but some people think because they really have done a pretty good recruiting job, et cetera, is Texas. Are you buying Texas? I
don't know how many times in my lifetime I've heard Texas is back.
Yeah.
And it just comes with the arrogance of being a Texas fan. Listen, I think they're good. I like Herman a lot. But I think they'll lose to LSU. I think they'll lose to Oklahoma. That's not bad if they go 9-3 or 10-2, but I don't think they are back yet in the upper 1% of college football.
Gotcha. Paul Finebaum, man, what a pleasure, what an honor. I appreciate you speaking with me today, and I hope you have a good day, brother.
Tim, the pleasure was mine. Hope to see you soon.
You got it, man. That was Paul Finebaum, ladies and gentlemen, and you guys all know him. Of course, I was going to get a dig in with him too. I forgot my dig. I was going to say that Urban Meyer might offer him the job of maitre d' at his new restaurant, but I didn't get around to that. But we'll be back with more after this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome in this special guest of mine. This person has a lot to do with Ohio State football, has the last name of Day, has been thrust into a bigger, more exciting, maybe more robust, more responsible life than just a few months ago. Had a taste of it at the end of the summer last year, as you well know. But this person's name is Day, but it's not Ryan Day. It's Nina Day. Christina Day is her formal name. And Nina, do you want me to call you Christina or Nina? Nina, what's the best for you?
You could call me Nina.
This is Ryan Day's wife, Nina, and welcome to my podcast, Nina.
Thank you for having me.
Real quickly, before we move on, you and Ryan grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire. You met when you were 6 years old or something. Y'all played on the same T-ball team together. And by the way, who was the better T-ball player at that point?
I remember me, but he claims it was him.
Well, you probably had a lot of guile going for you. You probably also hit the ball well, and you probably were faster than him. Do I have that down?
Right.
Do I have that down right? But then
right.
from almost day one, were you guys, was there something special in y'all's relationship? What do you remember about it?
Yeah, from day one, we were, best friends. We both, had a great interest in sports and playing them, and we were both pretty competitive growing up. So, yeah, right from, the beginning, we kind of had that connection.
Did you play sports into college yourself?
I did. I played basketball for St. Michael's College in Vermont my freshman year, and then I transferred to UNH, and I stopped playing basketball.
Yeah, because your boyfriend was at UNH, right, at that
Yeah,
point.
right.
Uh,
Right.
Nina, what was it like watching him go along from being a starting quarterback in high school to being a starting quarterback in college? Did you sense something was special about Ryan from the get go?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's the most competitive person, I've ever met. Losing is not an option for him. And I always tell people, right when you think you've backed him in a corner or you think he's down, he comes back even stronger. And I've seen that since we were, very little.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't get a lot, I don't get too nervous when, the boat starts to, rock a little bit and we're, in some turbulent times because I know that's when he's the strongest. Um,
Hmm.
and just growing up with him, he's super competitive. So he finds a way to win and he finds a way to get the starting job. He was a walk-on at UNH, and he hurt his back. He was in a back brace for about a year, and most people thought he wasn't going to come back and do much. And he ended up earning himself a scholarship and becoming the starter quarterback and breaking close to like 10 records at the University of New Hampshire. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
As I told him the other day, but if the University of Maine had a golf simulator, he might have gone there.
Right. Yeah.
We may get into
Yeah.
that later. But the bottom line is, like you just said, I mean, it's really funny because Ryan is a very personable, I want to call it polite man to deal with. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of coaches in my lifetime, and especially covering Ohio State football. But it's really funny because I think some people think he might be too nice. And I remember when he was asked that at Chicago one time, he got this look on his face. It was a grin, but I wouldn't call it a laughing grin. You understand what I'm saying? It was more of like,
Oh, yeah.
well, okay, we'll see. You know what I mean? That fixed grin of a man who has a plan, so to speak.
Right.
Real
Right.
quickly, take me through this. We all know about your background. You guys moved all. Wait, how quickly did you get married? Did you get married in college, right out of college? When did you?
Yeah, I was a year older than him in school wise, and then he redshirted. So he was in college 2 years after I graduated. I moved to Boston and worked, and then once he graduated college, we kind of got very serious and
Yeah.
started moving right away. We went down to Florida with Coach Meyer as a GA, and then moved up to Philly, and we moved 11 times
Yes.
in the last 13 years or something. So it was almost yearly for a number of years.
Did that become commonplace for you, or was it always a hassle in some form or fashion, especially when the kids started coming?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say any of the moves were easy on me. I mean, Ryan, I grew up in Manchester, and I didn't really escape that bubble up until we got married and we started moving
Yeah.
like we did. So every move, and my parents are still in the same house that I grew up in. So
Wow.
I
Wow.
wasn't really prepared for this life, but kind of put my head down and just did it. And then once the kids came, the moves definitely became more stressful when they got to schools and they had to leave friends. And
Yeah.
yeah, every move is very difficult.
Well, there were all these rumors the last couple of years. I mean, I don't know if you know this. He's a very popular guy when it comes to what people think of him as a coach. And there were some aspirations made. I remember when he first moved, when we first got to talk to him after he got the job here. I said, "Now, are you buying or renting?" He said, "We're buying." But then of course he was up for another couple of jobs at the end of that season and at the end of last year. But just real quickly, because I want to keep this moving. When he was named the interim head coach last year, what was
Mhm.
just your first reaction? I know, we all know what Ryan thought, but what was your first reaction? Was it, hey, this guy is ready for this, or was it, oh my God? I mean, obviously there was a lot of stuff involved with that, not just how you felt, but what was your first reaction?
Um, I mean, I was like, I thought that, right away that let's go, like he's ready for this. He did turn down a couple of other opportunities. And I just knew, just with the sensitivity of everything, that he was going to do, a great job. It was just so, everything that happened a year ago was just so sudden. I had so many mixed emotions for everything. I mean, I was literally in Kohl's buying some shoes for my kids for back to school, and Ryan called me and he said, it's going to be released in 5 minutes, that I'm going to be the interim head coach. And I was like, what? I dropped everything and I grabbed my kids and we ran out of Kohl's, and from there it just became a circus.
Wait a minute! I hope you didn't miss one of those Kohl's instant savings moments. Those little bubbles that are on the wow. But from then on, for that 7 or 8 weeks, how different was life for you? I mean, being the wife of the Ohio State head football coach, or what was the biggest difference?
Well, we moved here, a little over 2 years ago, and didn't know one person in Ohio. When I moved here, it was the first time I ever stepped foot in Ohio. So it was kind of like we did our own thing. We lived in our own little world, and we had, our football family and things like that. And then a year ago, he became the interim, and his face was all over ESPN, and all of a sudden everybody knew who we were. And so it came on us kind of fast.
Yeah.
It wasn't a gradual type thing. It just one day we woke up and, he's the interim head coach of Ohio State and everything that, comes with that.
Yeah.
So
It's like he had walked on the moon. Now he's getting the parade. Yeah. You get the parade
I
before
remember
you.
working out at a gym and looking up and seeing him on ESPN. I'm like, what is going on?
This is crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Take me to December. He's named the head coach at Ohio State. Because you guys are a team, there is no doubt about it.
Yes.
Is it a sense of yes? I mean, is it a sense of, obviously the other thing, was going to come to an end sooner or later. Now it's permanent, for whatever permanence is in the coaching world. But what was that sense for you guys as a team, and you personally, to have him rise? Because you've sacrificed basically as much as he has to get to this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was just honestly a little bit of a sense of relief. It kind of just, made me feel like all the sacrificing and the hard times, because none of this is easy. It's very rewarding, but it's very difficult. There's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of hardships on the family, with the kids and things like that. So it was a little bit of relief, that he worked as hard as he did, and we made these sacrifices, and we, never really gave up, and we plugged forward and did our best. And, an opportunity came, and the timing worked out, and, he got an opportunity like Ohio State, which is incredible. So for me, I felt a sense of relief that, it all kind of came together.
When you're the quarterback's coach, you have 4 or 5 guys you're coaching, and I would think y'all maybe had them over for dinner or whatever y'all can do. And, it's easy to know all those guys probably, although all those names have changed from this time a year ago. But when you're the head coach, you're now the stepmom to 115 guys or something. Just how has in a nutshell, how has your life changed? Now becoming, as I call you, the first lady of football in the state of Ohio. How has your life changed?
I'm a private person, so a lot of my daily stuff is just focused on the kids and things like that. When I go to the facility, I do try to establish relationships with a lot of the other players on the team and not just the quarterbacks. And I feel a sense of responsibility to the other, coaches' wives and their families to make sure that, they're okay, and that, their needs are being met and things like that. But overall, and I think until the season starts, I kind of just, stick to my routine and stay in my lane and things like that. But, there's definitely things that come along that, that I'm kind of working through, because I've never done this before, never mind at a place like Ohio State.
Yeah. Oh, amazing.
I've never been a head coach's wife before. So, and I think we have a great staff, and the wives are great. And a lot of them have been doing this for a long time. And, they're very, very supportive. And I call them and I ask them, for suggestions, or, what have you done in the past? And, So it's been really good so far.
I was gonna say you're kind of like Meghan Markle, you know. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like boom, now you're royalty. Although I think you come from a royal blood anyway, but the New Hampshire area. By the way, it's really funny. I've probably been to New Hampshire more times than you've ever been to Ohio, which is really odd. But real quick, let's move into this. One of the luxuries, I call it luxury, or of being now a head coach or a head coach's wife is now some things that maybe you wanted to get done or draw attention to. You're always being subservient, to the head coach when you're any place. I mean,
Mhm.
it's always this foundation you guys have started, this fund you guys have started about mental health awareness, et cetera. Just what does that mean to you of being on the cutting edge of something like that, of what you do see as something that needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, when I became the interim head coach, I started thinking about, when this finally happens for good, I really wanted to get behind a cause that we both felt passionately about,
Yeah.
because when Ryan feels passionate about something, he really kind of gives 110%. So
Hmm.
mental health has always been something we've always felt passionately about, and talked about. We talk a lot about it with our kids. And then, when he got named head coach, we got the platform that we kind of needed to kind of spearhead and kind of develop an initiative like partnering with On Your Sleeves to really kind of make more awareness, on mental health and the stigma around it, and try talking about it, and and bringing it home to our kids and bringing it into the football facilities, and hopefully this year into the schools of Ohio and the sports teams and things like that, to kind of make it more mainstream to talk about it, and not feel ashamed about it and anything like that. So it's been very, very important, and we're really excited for this opportunity. And we're excited that now we have a platform, that we can do it from.
You've been around kids. You were a kid. You've been around athletes in college when you were one, and then around Ryan when he was one. And there's a lot of reasons why, just athletically, guys, guys and gals hide their emotions or their feelings sometimes,
Hmm.
right, or what they're dealing with. How do you get them to express maybe some of their questions, their situations, without making them think it's going to be held against them, if you follow my drift there?
Right. I just, with my own kids, I tell them a lot, that it's okay not to feel okay. Just like sometimes when you get sick with an ear infection or the flu, sometimes your mind doesn't feel right. And that's okay. And, when you're ready to talk about it, we can talk about it. And Ryan does the same thing, with his team. He loves his players, and, he has an open door policy, and, you know, it doesn't make you any less of a man if you cry, or if you're hurting, or if you need help.
Yeah.
So he's really, trying to make, the team, feel comfortable, talking to people if they are struggling, because it's surprising the numbers of people that have anxiety, have depression, or just overall struggling with day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
So just making it okay to talk about your emotions. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you any less of a man. It doesn't, it's okay,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Hey, give me the name of the foundation again, so I get it right.
It's On Your Sleeves
Yeah.
with Nationwide Children's Hospital.
And what has been the reaction from what you've seen? I mean, how much money have y'all raised to date, et cetera? What have you seen so far?
Yeah, it's been great. The response that we've gotten, you know, we've been out in public a number of times, whether I'm in a daily routine going to our doctors, or at one of my kids games. I have people coming up to me and saying thank you for doing this, thank you for bringing awareness to this. Many people have come up to Ryan and said thank you for sharing your story about your father.
Mhm.
I've had more courage to share things about my own family, um,
Yeah.
and just the support has been great. I mean, I think a lot of people were afraid to put their name around this cause, and Ryan's not, and he's kind of spearheading this whole thing, and it was very courageous of him to go up, um in that press conference and, tell people his dad did commit suicide.
Yeah.
That's not something, he kind of came to terms with up until a few years ago. So it's been great. And then, we've had over 20 plus states donate to the fund from all over the country, which is
Wow.
great because it's an Ohio-based program, but people all over the country have been giving to it.
Oh
So
yeah.
we've had a great response.
Yeah, an oak tree to grow, it starts from a small acorn, and
Right.
just and you being from New England, you would know that.
Yeah. Hmm.
What changed about Ryan after he came to grips with with what happened with his father? What kind of did you see? What just loosened up in him, if that's not the right term? Maybe correct me. What did you see change in him after that?
It just seemed like there was a big weight off his shoulder. I
Yeah.
mean, I know when he was named head coach in December, a number of reporters would call me and they would ask very specific questions about his dad. And, I'd say, what, that's off limits. Please don't, write about his dad. That's not something the family,
Yeah.
wants to share. And we just, talking more and more about, what we felt passionate about, mental health. We thought, what, it's time to start talking about what happened to us and what happened to you. And, if we are going to be hypocritical if we tell people to talk about their emotions and get help when, we can't even do that. So
Yeah.
it was a therapeutic process for all of us. And I think once he got it out there and didn't have to kind of hide it anymore, there's a huge weight off his shoulders. And
Sure.
I think he felt he turned or is turning, trying to turn a negative into a positive thing. He wants to help other people.
Absolutely. I mean, pay forward, as the old saying goes. I mean, et cetera. I mean, get it before it comes to fruition. Hey, last thing, nothing on that. What's it going to be like sitting in the stands? Although you'll probably be up in the press box in a suite. I'm not sure where you'll be, but when it's 4th and 1 and they make a call and it doesn't go well, because you've dealt with this probably for a while now. What's it like to hear your husband criticized? You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
It's the most. There are no more experts in the world than college football fans on how play calling should go. Go ahead.
Right. So I've noticed. It's Ryan always says, Nina, you got to get thicker skin. You got to get thicker skin. But you know, it's a game, and everybody has their opinion, and I know he's out there obviously doing the best he can, and but it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie to hear things. I think I more worry about what my kids hear and what people say to
Yeah.
my kids
Yeah.
because I can kind of get over it. But it's their dad, and they take it very, very personal. I'm a coach's daughter, so I kind of grew up with this, and I do have to say you're more defensive of your father than your husband. I don't know what that is, but so I get why my daughter's crying, in the stands sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
it never changes though. I mean, it doesn't. The more you hear it, you don't get more callous to it, do you? I mean, it's like
no,
it's one of those. We're talking about family, right?
right? Yeah, it's personal for
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
and
Hey,
some of the things people say are just,
oh yeah.
crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Plus, sometimes they're lubricated when they say it. And that makes it even worse. Hey, Nina, one last thing. What do you think is going to be different about Ohio State football in the Ryan Day era? And I know I've been telling people this. I think he's finally going to get tired of being asked about Urban. Even though he's following a legend and et cetera. But it's going to be. I keep telling people this is now the Ryan Day era. I mean, there are going to be things that are going to be different. He's not this. He hasn't been told to just keep flying the same ship. He gets to do whatever he wants to with the ship. What do you think
Mhm.
is? What do you think is going to be? What are a couple of things you think are going to be different? Not necessarily from Urban, but that he's been waiting to put his stamp on as a head coach.
Just his he coaches through love and not fear. Um, he loves these players, and I think that they feel that he truly truly loves them. And they're a lot, and I hear them a lot. Tell them that they love them and stuff like that. So um, I just think that
Hmm.
a lot of players in the past maybe, and I'm not just, I'm not saying this about over, play out of fear. And now I think they're going to play a little bit looser. I know my husband likes to take risks, in his eyes is when you got a shot, you got to take it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think, those 4th and 1s or whatever, I think, Ryan's tendency is to go for it.
Yeah.
Because he's a risk taker. He likes to go for it, and
Yeah.
he'd rather lose, going for it than lose the other way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. He would be good at the Alamo. No, I'm just joking.
right,
Hey,
right.
one last thing. When was the moment you noticed that he was of head coach caliber? Because there are a lot of guys that come along who are better working for somebody else. You understand what I'm saying? I'm meaning
Yeah.
with somebody. When did you notice that? Yeah, he's got it in him to be the head man.
His entire coaching career, people have been telling me this.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, ever since he was a graduate assistant, full-time coaches would always come up to me, and the head coaches. I know Coach Meyer has been saying it through the years to me. It's amazing how many people have said, your husband's very, very good. Like, meaning, like, don't hold him back. Like, let him go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Move again if you have to. But he's destined for big things. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah.
Well, he's jumped into the cockpit of maybe one of the biggest planes out there, so it's going to be fun to watch. Nina.
Right. And the more pressure is on him, the better he likes it. So
Oh, really?
It's not like,
Yeah.
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 He likes it. So I think he's ready for it.
I gotcha. Nina, thank you very much. This has been a real slice of happiness here. I've enjoyed talking with you, and good luck to you and Ryan. Obviously, this, like I said, you're the first lady of football in Ohio now. Does that feel pretty good?
Yeah, it feels awesome.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Nina Day, wife of Ryan Day, but obviously a person of her own self and accomplishment. And wow, what a pleasure it was to speak with her. Thank you very much.